So, alhamdulillah, Brother Muhammad Ali for his wonderful talk, part two, good character, which is basically what many of us need to develop in terms of Islamic character and being able to recognize and examine ourselves, where we need to improve, and where we need to rectify and reform ourselves as Muslims. So, alhamdulillah, my brothers and sisters, we're winding down to the end of this program. So, before I open up, I would just like to thank all of you brothers and sisters and all the speakers who came before me for wonderful information, jewels that came, and I get excited when I get knowledge. Always have your student of knowledge cap on. So this is not the case when you say the best for last, okay? So I like to always try to strangle egos, because cameras and microphones and Facebook can bring out a lot of us, things that we have conceit, arrogance, and show off. So I want to make sure I explain that. I am not the best, and I'm not last because I'm the best. Okay, so alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah الذي من علينا بصحة الافتقار وطهر قلوبنا من أثران الشرك والوطنية والإلحاد وأنقذنا من بركة الجاهلية والشر والفساد. أحمده تعالى وأشكره وأتوب إليه وأستغفره جل عن الأنداد وتنزه عن الصارمة والأولاد وتعالى عن مشابهة العباد. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له شهادة من علم معناه وعمل بمقتضى وحقق المرام. وأشهد أن نبينا محمد عبد الله ورسوله إمام الموحدين وخاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين والهادي إلى سبيل الحق والرشاد وشرف مشفق يوم المعاد صلى الله وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه الأمجاد والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم السلام. أما بعد. First and foremost, my brothers and sisters, I want to thank many people before I get into the discussion. First, Imam Tariq Muhammad and his wives and his community for even giving me this opportunity to be amongst who I consider teachers of mine. And even the ones who are not formally my teachers, they taught me tonight. Always keep a student of knowledge hat on. I'd like to also first thank many people who have been part and parcel of my evolving growth in terms of learning Islam. And I want to mention this first to the women. I was raised by strong women in my family. And they taught me masculinity. But they also taught me the balance of how to treat women. They were the backbones of my family. And so it's very easy for me when we talk about treating our wives and treating women well, that's not my problem. And I guess I had a head start because the women were pillars. They taught us to be strong. And they would not tolerate any man putting their hands on them or treating them any kind of way because they knew their worth. They knew their value. You must know your worth and your value, and you will never allow anyone, no man is worth taking the worth that you are and the value of. If Allah has honored you, and Allah can do anything to His creatures, but He honors you and gives you this honor, how is it in the world to allow another man to take away that worth? You must know your own worth, your own value. And when you know that, you begin to understand this relationship of marriage. You will never let a man diminish any one iota of your word. I'd like to thank some of the brothers and sisters mostly first. Sister Hassana, who I call the mother of all mothers of Atlanta. She was like the seamstress, tailoress, right? When I first came to Atlanta from New York City, from Brooklyn, right? New York City, Flatbush. I came to Atlanta. If you wanted to have a wife, go to Sister Hassana. She knew every size, shape, ethnic background. She had access to anything you want in terms of the woman. And Sister Hassana and Sheikh Fahim, they were always a pillar in my life. I also like to thank Sister Sabira. Sister Sabira and Felicia, my sister. These are the former people who supported me in Masjid al-Rahman. And in fact, these two, Felicia and Sister Sabira, was the quarterback to my relationship. And I say that because we heard many of the speakers speak about women. To have a good man, you have to have a good woman. And it was Sabira and Felicia who quarterbacked me into having the good woman that I had. I like to thank my wife, who I call Sugar. Nobody should else call her that. That's my name for her. Brown Sugar, also known as Mahida, right? For being there to support me in all my endeavors. And I am appreciative to Allah for that. So alhamdulillah, I really appreciate all what was been said today. And so we're talking about COVID-19, surviving after COVID-19. Well, for the start, don't get the shot. You want to survive? One of the things is don't get the shot. You know, I'm not here to actually, because I've been touching on this for 2 years, COVID-19. I'm not here trying to make anyone feel that bad if they did take a shot. But I want to give you some informative information because there was a lot of things surrounding COVID-19. In fact, COVID-19 kind of controlled many people's lives. Particularly, we seem to always allow someone to subvert our reality, or we always find ourselves in an inferior position, allowing someone to dictate to us what something is and respond, even the fear that rampant amongst the Muslim community was manufactured. And when we look at this COVID-19 situation, right, there's a few things that we need to know. First of all, what were we doing before we heard about COVID-19 when we got sick? I mean, the terrorism thing caught the Muslims. The biggest gap in the Muslim community when they started that terrorism thing, that 9/11 thing, how the Muslim leaders, Muslims started dividing and people started falling apart, right? And every some 10 to 20 years, there's always a socially engineered crisis that comes in the Muslim community, and the Muslims are always the ones that seem to be the victims. And I'm not saying victims as if someone intentionally victimized them. They became the victim because they became the victims of these kind of events. What is COVID-19? So when I look at the signs of COVID-19 and the signs of the flu, I see some similarities. You know, I had asthma when I was in New York City, right? And the same signs, this is 1998. The lung that you had, you know, the glass in your lungs, the short of breath, the fever, that sign, that headache, and things of that nature, I had all that. But I had underlying factors. I had asthma. And so when I moved here, I took black seed. And it was black seed that, and a couple of other combinations of things, that I don't have asthma anymore. Right? And my point is, we seem to always advertise someone else's agenda. Right? So when we fought the flu with our mothers back in the days, what did we treat it with? Somebody tell me, what did we treat it with? When we had the flu, when you had that headache, when you had that sore throat, same symptoms, when you had short of breath, right? What did we treat it with? Castor oil. Anybody remember castor oil? Castor oil, right? Then there was this other medicine called 666. Tastes like metal, but it was good. Then we had what? Lemon, ginger, honey, right? All those things, we took care of it. We never separated in family when we were sick. Family stayed there. If they want the cold, they allowed their natural immune system to fight it off. Right? What happened to all those traditions that our mothers and fathers taught us? There are some things that we just don't leave behind when we come to our traditions. Right? So what made the Muslim community divide? Because really we're talking about the Islamic community post-COVID-19. What happened? That something that we was already experiencing, right, in terms of sickness and diseases. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us clearly that Allah, مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ دَاءً إِلَّا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ شِفَاءً. For every disease that Allah sends down, He sends down a cure. That didn't change. That did not change. And Allah says He does not send down anything that is basically unlawful as a cure. Right? You understand that? Allah does not send or order us to take something that is forbidden inside of it as a so-called medicine. Right? One of the things that I realized was that the community, there were already Muslims struggling with their deen. When COVID-19 hit, the most safe haven place for Muslims is the masajid. The masajid closed down. Now here's a brother who already was struggling. That was their only harmony and peace, the masjid. There were people who didn't know where to pray. They were calling around, where's the masjid? Are y'all open? Like storefronts, like stores. But everybody was going to Target. Everyone was going to Target and Walmart, right? And all of a sudden, the masjid shut down. Now, you can't blame the government for that. The Muslims shut the masjid down. Not the leaders. Poor decisions. Wasn't deliberate. They locked the masjids down. Not the government. Don't tell me there's a lock-in. Listen, if they're going to be a lock-in, you ain't going to Target. You ain't going to buy tissue, right? When it's a lockdown, when they declare what we call posse comitatus, which is a phrase called martial law. When there's martial law, no one moves in the streets. No one. You got checkpoints on your blocks, locking it down. It was a shame that people were already struggling with their deen, that the masjids, when it's their only safe haven, and it was closed. Not only that, the COVID-19 magic word separated the Muslim in the most vital aspect of their deen, 6 feet apart. From an obligatory duty, congregational salah, in the name of talking about COVID-19, and we are, what? Tying, this concept of tying your camel. You can't tell me tying a camel is a doctor's paper mask that you can rip up with your hands. Tying the candle is that many of the speakers who spoke before me, what does it mean when we say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah? There is no power, no might, except with Allah. What does that mean? Right? That means there's no disease, no thing that can happen to anyone. Nothing has the power by itself to do any harm to any of us. And so when does qadr of Allah really count? Not when we're sitting and eat. When does having patience, right? Relying and trust on Allah, all the ingredients that we speak out of context, right? Meaning when you're sitting down and eat, you will never understand trials in times of ease. You can only understand trials in the storm, the eye of the storm, when we're going through difficulties, when your back is against the wall, when now the only thing you can resort to is Allah, and Allah will save you, protect you. Tawakkul is to trust in Allah and the secondary means, right? Allah says, and the Prophet ﷺ said, and we talk about spiritual things, social things. Let's talk about the physical body. That when we talk about having rights over our bodies, your body has rights over you, and that's not only when you're tired and when you go to sleep. It's in cahoots with how do we take care of our bodies. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? He said, take care of your health before you what? Get sick. Right? So that means there's something that you and I are supposed to have been doing prior to getting sick. Right? Believing that the Quran is shifa for mental, physical, and spiritual diseases. Believing that the Prophet ﷺ said that black seed is a cure for all diseases, illa maut, except that. Do you believe that? Did you believe that? Because all we see in the Muslim communities, we had sanitation, stuff to wipe your hands, gloves, things of that nature. I didn't see anyone have no black seed, no honey. They had all the things that the non-Muslims told them to have, right? But no black seed. You advocating someone else's agenda, someone else's disposition of how you stay well. Do you not know that Allah created the immune system with its own defense? And then you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that taking care of your health is a priority. How we eat, what we drink, right? The part of the breakdown of the immune system is basically the things we've been eating, right? Not taking care of our health. These are all the results of a breakdown of the immune system. Now, you can call whatever disease it is. They got 100,000 names for diseases, but no name for cure. Something's wrong with that. You can call it malaria, immune deficiency syndrome. You can call it Ebola, immune deficiency syndrome. You can call it cancer, immune deficiency syndrome. You can call it syphilis, immune deficiency syndrome. And all the names only realize one thing: breakdown of the immune system. So you get opportunistic infections, brain disease, skin disease, meningitis, right? Signs you see: hair falling out, eyes getting jumped, right? All because his immune system does not have the antibodies to fight off blood, the bacteria, right? So you can call it COVID-19, whatever you want to call it. First, do you understand what the word COVID-19 means? I always ask this. Why? Because we always mimic other people's words, right? We always utilizing every word you got that you used came from CNN. Even terrorism, you didn't use that word 25 years ago, 30 years ago. That came from the media. Fundamentalists, all of those words that people are using. Muslims for against terrorism on Facebook. All the words you mimic, and so to be a prisoner of someone else's concept, belief, history, and education system that distorts yours is a path of enslavement. Mental bondage is the invisible violence when we take on other people's ideals, right? The Muslim community. Now, congregation salat is mandatory for the man. You get 25, 27 blessings. If you believe when you were young, right? We got sick. What did your mother do? Tell you to stay home. If you was working, what did you do? You call the boss and say, I'm going to take a sick day. Right? If you're sick and you feel that, there's no such thing as, I think, maybe I am sick, I may be sick. This asymptomatic is foolish, is not true. Asymptomatic, there are signs in every one of us if we reflect as the law says. There's no such thing as asymptomatic. Believe that. Everyone has, unless your body is so toxic that it can't recognize the signs. When I get a sore throat, I know when I'm going to get it. When I get a headache, I know when I'm going to get it. I know my body. I am the expert on me. You may be experts on medicine, but not me. I know how things affect me. And all of us, the law created us that way. Right? So, when we get sick, we stay home. But if you are coming out to the masjid to make congregation salah, this is what happens. And then you stay separate from the jama'ah, you have diminished the blessings of the 25, 27 blessings that you came for. There's no Sahaba, when they had a plague, and they never separated from the congregation salah. You went off to the fatwa of those in Saudi, and those scholars who you trusted in. But you didn't look at the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad. They never separated one iota. When the plague got worse, they stayed home. But when they came out to the masjid, they prayed in congregation salah. Now it has become a new religion. Even to this day, this late day in time, I still see a scientific project in these masjids. The unvaccinated sitting in the front, the back, and the vaccinated in the front. People sitting in 6 feet in boxes like experimental monkeys, with masks on their face, with the most dangerous disease in the world, they said. One of the most dangerous diseases is COVID-19. Many thousands of murders, right? But they give you a paper mask. Now, when you're doing pesticides, what kind of mask they give you? A mask that covers everything, right? Everything. But the most dangerous disease, COVID-19, they give you a paper mask. And you say, that's tying your camera. Just think about these things. Just think about it. So when we allow people to control us or define who we are and what we should use in our life, well, okay, I gotta make Hajj. So I gotta make Hajj, and Allah makes it obligatory for us to make Hajj. But Allah will never command you to do something unlawful, to do something lawful. Right? So let me just give you a little information about what is COVID-19, and you can do your own research. Malcolm X had once said, history is best recorded by all research. Unfortunately, as black people, he said you want to hide something from them, put it in a book, because we don't read anymore. We don't research, right? Now, here's some things you need to know about COVID-19. COVID. Now, there's a difference between a conspiracy theory and conspiracy. What's the difference? Somebody tell me.
What is just theory?
Conspiracy is just a theory. Okay. Anybody else? What is a conspiracy theory? Because remember, everybody keep using it. You got that from TV, though. All the words that we're talking about, you got it from TV. CNN, COVID-19. I got COVID. So one guy was walking through, right? He just finished coming from the hospital. And then he had a shirt. Got COVID. Because he took the shot, right? Because there's no way in the world that you take a shot to increase your immune system and fight off the germs. It's naturally already there, right? A conspiracy theory has no facts. A conspiracy, if you have one shred of evidence, is no longer a theory. Right? The COVID-19 vaccine AstraZeneca, they call it CHAD, CHADOX1. They call it recombinant. Right? Recombinant is DNA molecules, which is the MRC5. The MRC5, this is what's in COVID. You can get it and look on the back yourself. Okay? Just like the mask. On the back it says, these masks don't protect you from COVID-19 or any viruses at that. The mask that they give us is on the back. Just read it. Right? The MRC5 is a cell, what they call a diploid cell culture line composed of fibroblasts. What is fibroblast? It's originally developed from the lung tissue of a 14-week-old aborted Caucasian male fetus. You think I'm lying? I'm telling you, go look it up. Wikipedia. The fibroblast is a type of biological cell that synthesizes, produces the structural framework. They call it stroma. And the stroma comes from animal tissue. Animal tissue, most common cells of connective tissue in animals. And so the recombinant DNA formed by laboratory methods of genetic recombination, cloning. What that means? That brings together genetic material from multiple sources. And those multiple sources from animals, from some of the blood, from humans, is a multiple genetic material, right? And it creates a sequence of artificial intelligence. So COVID-19, the actual acronym, which everyone keeps thinking is the disease. I got COVID. What do you mean by this? COVID is not a disease. COVID-19 is not a disease. AIDS is not a disease. That's an acronym. Acute immune deficiency syndrome. Right? Certification of artificial intelligence vaccine device 2019. Okay? This is just information that we as Muslims, as a community, we're talking about developing a community. When we're talking about doctors, we need herbalists at the table. We need our psychologists at the table. You know the concept of black nationalism, when Mama was talking about being in charge of your own community, your own doctors, your own politicians, your own economic system, your own education system, your own doctors. You need nurses, you need people of this caliber to be also in the community so we won't have what we had. That's what we learned from post-COVID-19. The masajids closed down. The Muslim leaders sold many Muslims out because they were getting a stipend. And I'm telling you for facts, I know Muslims were getting government money for validating the COVID-19 in their messaging. I went to the masjid and I never wore a mask. That was my prerogative, right? Because I don't believe, my blood needs oxygen. Some people driving cars in their cars with masks and nobody else is in there. This kind of inconsistency. Believers, Muslims. I said, brother, why you got a mask? Nobody's there. That's my conditioning, right? So I go to the masjid, and this brother had the nerve to ask me. He said, "Do you have your vaccine card?" You know, to be truthful, you want to be real? I didn't say it, but this is what I said. Nigga, you better get out my face. That's what I wanted to say. A vaccine card? What? To get in the masjid, right now, the Muslim leaders, board of directors, I ain't gonna tell you where it's at, has sanctioned that you have to have a vaccine passport to get in the masjid. This is in Canada. This is what happened to the Muslims. Now, Muslims are already struggling with their deen. The most vital part of their life is the masjid where they worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you locked it down. I tell you, I went to, in fact, your community, David. I went there and they wanted to force me to wear a mask. I said, man, that's ridiculous. I'm not sick. I wouldn't even came out here if I was. He said, brother, where's your mask? Brother, where's your mask, brother? I said, brother, I don't have a mask and I'm not wearing one. I'm going to make salat right here. Brother, I go and he called the police on me. The police came and said, what's the trouble? I said, I just came here to pray. That's all. He said, well, this is my masjid. That's what he said. He didn't recognize me. I did speeches before with him. He don't even recognize me. This is my masjid. This is my business. Get out. You don't want to go pray outside. That's what he said. Right? So I stayed in there. The police said he didn't want to be involved with religious matters. He said, well, the mask, you'll have to put one on. I said, I'm not going to wear a mask. We can't wear masks when we pray. Right? But these are the kind of situations that happen in the masjids. And so the Islamic community, the construction and organization of group and personal identity are of the most important to individual group functionality and the survival, the masjid. So we're talking about the importance of identity, right? So, in order for the Muslim community to survive autonomously and exist and prosper, we must see the establishment of the identity of themselves and their constituents as their major role. And this is accomplished through their controlling the nature, through their environment, their social experience, information, social interaction, and symbols. Cultural symbols are utilized to help what? Construct, maintain, and regulate the identity and behavior of the constituents of that cultural group in such ways as to advance their individual group and their cultural interests as a community. So all the things that the speakers were talking about in terms of building, we need doctors, herbalists, we need psychologists from the Islamic perspective as well, and many other things that will help develop our community so that we won't make these irrational decisions that are made that actually Muslims have setbacks because of national security. I mean, setbacks, true setbacks. Some people was trying to stay off the street, right? And they closed down a major part of their lives. And so there are some people who worship Allah as if they're on the edge. And they use the word hadr. And in grammar language, it's like something at the end of the letter. But it also means that they're breaking point. They worship Allah as if they're breaking point. So that when they're tested with the good, then they are very content. Right? But when some trial afflicts them in qalaba wajhi, their whole disposition changes because of the trial, the fitna, right? So when we're in good ease, we have taqwa. And when we're in ease, we say we have all the trust in Allah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. But when we're tested with something, people begin to change, right? You've seen this. All the lions who used to be on the minbar and the khutbahs, jihad this and that, trust in Allah, qadr Allah. Some people think qadr Allah, that if you slap the person, he says, well, that's the qadr of Allah. Yeah, that's the qadr of Allah. You know, Allah willed it to happen, it wouldn't have never happened. That's their misconception of qadr of Allah. Really to understand that is when you're actually in a fitna, a trial. Right? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. When we are sick, we should rely on Allah. Right? We should rely on what Allah and the secondary means. Right? We should promote black seed. I'm telling you, I don't take any other medicine. If I had to, yes. but my body's used to natural herbs. It works for me. I believe the Quran is Shifa on every level. I had asthma. I took that black seed, it was gone. That gave me hope. Trust in the means of Allah as well. Don't be promoting somebody else's agenda. And again, in last covering Imam Shadid, you helped me with identifying my strength. I remember you said, أنت تعرف قواتك بما يخاف الناس عليك. That you know your strength by what people fear of you. And what that means is, it helped me to identify one of my strengths. I want to tell the truth. I'm just not the type of person that somebody tells me what to say. And that was taking place in the masjids when they did open up the masjids only for 50 people. Sometimes other masjids is like only board members. When you hardly recognize board members at the masjid, I ain't saying that they are, but in my experience, I'm keeping the I statement. My experiences, the board members don't really come to the masjid, except for events. So, and I understand that we want to tie a camel, but make sure it's reliable, right? Staying home. It's tying my camel. If I'm sick, you won't see me outside. Imagine, in last point, that you're telling your boss with the asymptomatic concept, I want to take a sick day. He says, are you sick? He said, no, but I may be. I don't know if I'm sick, I may get sick though. So I'm just taking the sick day just in case I do get sick, right? Because I don't know if I'm sick. Maybe I seem like I'm well, but I don't know if I'm well. I may be looking like I'm well, but I don't feel sick yet, but I may be getting sick. You know, your boss will never give you a sick day. But in asymptomatic, meaning that Allah does not create the human being that way. Okay? And so my brothers and sisters, I pray that we get information before he who acts without knowledge will corrupt more than they rectify. We just don't want to jump out there because CNN said it. And Dr. Fauci, my grandmother has a better remedy than him. Dr. Fauci and all these other people who are telling us the agenda about what is happening, right? And me and my wife, we traveled more. Everybody stayed off the highway, $46 to take a plane. We went jet skiing in Destin, Florida. We went to Vegas, the Grand Canyon. I said, ain't no COVID out here, because it was so beautiful, a whole different world, a whole different world. And I pray that I thank Allah for giving me the strength. I mean, since those 2 years of what people, if you got COVID, you believe that, and you got it. Part of it is psychological as well. We just need to take care of our bodies better. We do. We need to take care of our bodies better. Because underlying factors is what causes people's situations as well. And I pray that we stick to the remedy of the Prophet Muhammad. The medicine of the Prophet, there's a book that we need to keep reading and using in our lives so we can stay healthy, my brothers. So may Allah bless y'all. Wa astaghfirullah. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.